see so many women students. Okay, don't let anybody call you girls anymore. Done with that, okay? I love that because I have a heart for women in business. I don't have a business degree myself. I was recruited by BYU to teach management communications. I taught for 21 semesters there. But my biggest passion is entrepreneurship. And so I couldn't be happier to be here. I have both my daughters here with me today. You have Emma, who's graduating. Does anybody know Emma Pay over there? Okay, a couple friends. And also my other daughter, Mary Elizabeth, right there. So, and we're talking about where she's going to go to school, right? I might have another SUU student next year who's been offered a 4-year scholarship here. So thank you for having me. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story. As Tyler said, I was a psychotherapist by training. And specifically, I trained as a sex therapist and somehow ended up running this business all about health and wellness. And you're going to find that you can't really map out your journey. Like sometimes you just stay open to possibilities and amazing things happen. I've been a single mom now for 10 years. And I built my business, which did $5.4 million last year, by myself with no venture capital money, no borrowing, no alimony, and I have no debt. Currently have no debt on the business or in my personal life. And so I'm sort of a bootstrapper, did it by myself. I'm a big fan of the garage business where you start from nothing. And what I want to share with you today, I'll tell you a little bit about my story, but I want to share with you 13 things I wish I knew when I was your age that would have taken away a lot of anxiety in going out there and starting my career, first as an employee and then later as the founder of several businesses, including currently Green Smoothie Girl. So last year we did $5.4 million. My goal for this year was to do $8.7 million. And we're totally on track. Q1, we totally hit all of our goals. I have about 25 employees, and some of the things that I've had to learn along the way, which were really hard, is to be 10 years younger and a woman bossing around a bunch of dudes. And that was one of the hardest things I've had to do. I was raised in a culture where I was not supposed to participate in the economy. I was supposed to stay home and have a bunch of babies, probably more than I did have. I only had 4. That was sort of inferior the way I was raised. So I'm a little bit of a disappointment in the family that I was raised in. It was my 6 brothers who were supposed to go out and slay the dragon, drag it into the cave. But the reason I'm such a fan of you women getting as much education and experience and stepping into your power as you possibly can is that it is, guess how many of you will, if you want to. If all of you in this room want to be a stay-at-home wife and mother, guess how many of you will get to do that for your whole adult life? Opt out of the economy and just stay home and focus entirely on family. Guess how many, percentage-wise? 10%. Okay, so even if all of you want to do it, it'll be 10% of you who are actually able to do that. Because guess what? It's not all your decisions that lead to that happening, right? You know, nobody plans to be divorced. Nobody plans to be widowed. Nobody plans to be, stepping into a career in midlife. But I was home with my kids. I was home with my kids for 15 years. And so you kind of have to reinvent yourself when you've devoted yourself there. I'm a big fan of women getting to stay home and raise their families too, if that's what they want to do. But just know that your odds of that happening are 1 in 10, and so you would be so smart to prepare yourself to be able to provide for your children. It was such a shock to me, something Emma said to me a year or 2 ago. I have felt more guilt about one thing than anything else in my whole entire life, and that was that I was a working mom. Because I was raised to believe that that is a fail. That is not what I was programmed to do. And a year or 2 ago, Emma said that the way I've made the biggest impact on her life is by showing her how scrappy I've been in building a business and doing something that I love and that I'm passionate about, and then monetizing that passion that I had for teaching people how to eat healthy. And she said, "Thanks for being a badass, Mom. What you've modeled to me has had everything to do with my own ability to be successful and to see myself being successful." And I get really emotional every time I think about it, and when she said that to me, because the thing that I thought was a fail was actually what was most meaningful to my daughter, and I couldn't feel more blessed by that. Like I said, life will take lots of twists and turns. Lean into all the possibilities because your life becomes something bigger and better, more amazing than you could have ever dreamed up. And you just lean into all the possibilities that come your way. So 13 things I wish I'd known in college and in building my business that would have saved me a lot of unnecessary stress. I started my first business when I was 19. I was like, okay, so my parents didn't pay a single dollar for my college or grad school. I bought my own clothes from 16, paid for my own car insurance, parents helped with nothing ever. So it made me scrappy. And Harvard Business Review had this amazing paper several years ago that talked about what every single successful person has is 2 qualities. Ready? If you're a note taker, here's the thing to write down. But if you don't write down anything else I say, the 2 qualities of all successful people are that they are 2 R words. Can you guess at one of them?
Resourceful.
Thank you. Who said that? You get points. Resourceful. They're resourceful. Someone tells them no, they're going to find a way to get a yes. And the other one?
Resilient.
Resilient. Somebody read the Harvard Business Review. Resourceful and resilient. Resilient is when life knocks you down, when you get a no, when you fail at something, you just keep going. And so one of the things that I've learned is that business and life and parenting, okay, those are the 3 most important things that I've done. Business, life, and parenting are long games. They aren't a play. They aren't a get-rich-quick scheme. You don't run a successful business because you had a great idea. Okay, to have that in your head is, I just have to think of something really amazing. I gotta come up with this great app or develop this software, and then I just develop it and I'll make millions of dollars. That is 1% of it. And write down, if something I say to you sounds really weird, write it down and go ask a bunch of other entrepreneurs. I'll be surprised if you find an entrepreneur who will disagree with me on this. It's 1% idea. What's the other 99%?
Hard work.
Yeah. Resourcefulness and resilience, okay? You just keep running into roadblocks and you just keep knocking them down. And every day you get up and your work ethic, not your idea, is what makes you millions of dollars. So now I have a life where I can do absolutely anything I want. In fact, right now, if I wanted to quit and never work again, I have that freedom. And I'm still pretty young, and I still play tennis competitively. And now I go to Switzerland every summer for 3 weeks and do no work, and I probably take 5 or 6 vacations. And I have absolutely no debt. My homes are paid for, my car is paid for, but I paid for that. I overworked. I outworked my employees for decades. They were asleep, I was up working. So, sure, you can work smarter, but entrepreneurs put a lot of time in, and they are willing to play the long game. That is my biggest takeaway from running a business and from raising kids. There are days raising children where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst at this. I'm the worst. I don't even know why I have these kids. This one doesn't like me, that one's doing this one's making bad choices. And guess what? You just keep doing it, and you just keep showing up, and you just keep trying to love them, and it's different in a year than it is now. And that is how my business has been. I used to teach my students at BYU that there are 2 kinds of businesses. They're the ones that make money, and the ones that you learn from. And I've had both. And the ones that you learn from are the really humbling ones. And I've had businesses completely fail. I've had times when I thought I was going to lose my home. I've had times when I got up every single morning and cried for half an hour before I got up and got dressed and moved on. So lots of hard times, and it was completely, totally worth it. Now, not everybody should be an entrepreneur. Some of you should not be running a business. That's not what you were made to do, and I'm glad everybody shouldn't be an entrepreneur, because I don't know who I would hire if all of you wanted to be entrepreneurs. Right? Everybody shouldn't bring watermelon to the picnic. So, one of the things that I have learned that I wish I knew sooner is that every job in business, every career is a writing career. It's a communications career. Does that seem crazy? Any of you here hate to write? Very few of you are going to admit it after I said that, right? How many of you don't feel like you're a very good writer? It's totally okay to be vulnerable. Okay, if you don't feel you're a very good writer, There's nothing you can invest in your college years that's going to matter more than being a good writer. When you send out an email or a text, and you don't know the difference between your Y-O-U-R and your Y-O-U''RE, and you do that till you're 65, I've seen people do this in the work world. People are talking about you behind your back. You are not getting hired. You are not getting the interview because of stuff like that, and nobody tells you. Nobody writes you an email back and says, your resume looks good, except that you don't know the difference between 2, 2, and 2. Right? Do you guys know when to use T-O versus T-O-O? If you don't, write that down. It's okay. No shame here. We're students. But don't go out in your careers not knowing how to write, how to put together sentences and paragraphs that say precisely what you mean, so that it's soft enough, so that it's direct enough, so that it's clear enough. How many of you here have had no writing classes? Excellent, outstanding, SUU's got it going on. Okay, how many of you here are sitting here going, oh, I should have paid more attention in those writing classes? Hey, people, I'm telling you, people are judging your writing and they're saying nothing to you. I have seen more emails and I don't like to judge. I prefer to be a person who is non-judgmental. I work on that skill every day. But when I see something that is badly written, I judge you. And I don't call you for the interview. And you might be awesome. But if you can't communicate, you're going to be my face. This is a digital world. Most of the people you work with, you never even meet these days. All 25 of my employees work from home. I have a whole bunch of employees I've never met. I have people I'm paying $50,000 a year to I have never met. Most of them I've met because I usually fly them in once or twice a year. We do a retreat. But more and more and more jobs being from home, like my job is, running a multi-million-dollar business from my house in my jammies with no makeup on most days. How much more important does that make it to be a good communicator? It's harder to be a good communicator in writing than it is face-to-face, right? Like, when you're face-to-face with someone, you've got all these tools available to you, right? I'm smiling, I'm using my hands, I'm diverting your attention from my words, look, right? But all you got when you write to someone is those black words on the white screen. So, I hope I've made that point, because it's really, really, really important that we learn how to write. And you millennials have been criticized for not being as good at writers as the generation that comes before you. And they're your employers. So, get that Strunk and White, ask for it for Christmas, Strunk and White, or some really good style guide. And it's boring, I know, but just learn those rules. Nothing you do will be a better use of your time. So that's like thing number one. Just side note, my business, greensmoothiegirl.com, came to be because my family and I went on, wait for it, wife swap. Are you guys old enough to have ever?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So it's one of the most popular reality TV shows in the history of reality TV. We were in season 5, which I believe was the last season. Good luck finding it. I will not be facilitating finding it. Because they edited the crap out of us. And I was supposed to be the hard-ass mom who makes her kids drink green smoothies, and if you're not in the car by 7:23, you have to walk to school, and every time I smiled or laughed, they edited that so that and then there's the fun mom. And that's my crazy story, how I put Green Smoothie Girl up. So I put Green Smoothie Girl up. I actually got cold feet and backed out of it. Found out later that the family we were supposed to swap lives with was in West Virginia. And there were 3 obese children living in a fifth wheel running around setting up carnivals around West Virginia. And I was going to be living in a fifth wheel, trying to help the kids eat healthier or whatever. I backed out of that. I didn't know who I was going to. They don't tell you till you're at the airport, right? So I backed out of it because of some issues that they wouldn't deal with in the contract. They were like, you're the only mom who's ever read that 68-page contract, let alone demand that we make changes to it. I'm like, so they came back to me weeks later and they're like, we really want you to be on the show. We'll make the changes. This is ABC and Disney that I'm negotiating with, right? So I ended up going to swap lives with a family in inner city Albuquerque, like bars on the window. and they ran a skate shop, a government-subsidized skate shop. They were all Native Americans, and most of them were on drugs, and most of them had never eaten a vegetable. So it was all kinds of fun, but the crazy thing, and this is what I'm telling you about life leads you strange places, is that ABC Disney told me lots of people are going to try and reach you when you show this weird green drink that you make your kids drink. And so I was like, they said, maybe you want to put up a little website or something like that. So I hired one of my BYU students and we put up a website, and it was already viral before the show ever aired. The show didn't air for 9 months and my site was already viral by then. This was in 2006, 2007. So I was a blogger before there was a word blogging, and I've just been riding that wave. The first year, I had nothing for sale. I had no idea. Emma's best friend's mom told me, you have a business here. This is a multi-million-dollar business. You just don't understand it. And she's like, we got to go to this. You got to learn internet marketing, and you got to, learn how to monetize this thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? What does that even mean? Any of that? So we got on a plane. We went to Florida. Emma's best friend's mom and I. And I was like, how do you sell anything to people to tell them to eat more spinach? Here we are, probably having an $8.7 million year. The people always like, do you sell people green smoothies? I'm like, no, never sold people a green smoothie. You have to make your own dang smoothie. So, another thing I would like to share with you is that it doesn't matter if every single piece of information that you are learning here in college seems relevant to your future career. Seriously, stop saying that to people. You know what is valuable about your college education? It's not all the download. Okay, you're going to get some good facts. You're going to have good teachers who teach you good things. Like I said, you're going to learn how to write. You're going to learn how to do marketing. You're going to learn the value of entrepreneurship. You guys work really hard to bring entrepreneurs from the outside to talk about what it is like in the trenches running a business, right? You're going to learn some good things. But you know what you're doing here in college that sets you up really well for running a business or being a great employee who gets promoted and promoted and promoted and can take care of your family that way? Is you're learning to do a whole bunch of boring things and listening to boring teachers. Guess what? You're going to do that for the rest of your life. You're going to do things you think are pointless and boring. A whole bunch of my job is stuff I don't like. Now, most of it is stuff I love, but if you get a job that's 80% love it, 20% it's as good as it gets. And it's still an awesome job. So seriously, if you've heard the criticism of the education system, where people say that college education has become irrelevant, I completely disagree. It was in college where I learned to be a finisher. And remember what I told you? What's being a multi-million-dollar business owner? 1% idea and 99%. Be a finisher. Do you finish your projects? Or do you start projects and drop them? You keep starting new projects and never finishing. It's the finishers that make the millions of dollars. It's the finishers that get promoted in their work. It's the people who get promoted in their jobs are the ones who make time for the things that are important but not urgent. Have any of you guys read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? There's this quadrant in there. There's this quadrant where Covey talks about how people spend their time, okay? And there's the urgent, and there's the important. I'll probably butcher this. I'm not a very pictographical person. But you got important and not important, and most people spend all their time doing things that are urgent and not important, okay? Most people spend most of their time doing the stuff that's urgent and not important. Then you've got the stuff that's urgent and important. And most people spend the rest of their time on the urgent but important stuff, okay? Your whole life is taken up right here. The successful people do the stuff that is not urgent but important. And so when I do employee evaluations, and then we've got not urgent, not important, okay? This is not urgent, not important. Okay, I'm going to say something kind of provocative here. Video games. Porn. Okay, right there. Not urgent, not important. Okay, all of you who are watching a lot of video games, watching a lot of TV, looking at a lot of porn, guess what? There's some people who are doing important but not urgent stuff with that same amount of time, and they're going to be your bosses someday. They're going to be the ones driving the BMW. Or whatever it is that you want to do. You want to free up your time to do humanitarian work? That's my next thing. I don't have to work much anymore. I'm going to go save a bunch of polygamous women and children. That's my next thing. Nobody's going to pay me to do it, but I just freed up a whole bunch of time by being an entrepreneur. So, this is something I have learned, and I say to my employees every time we do an annual review, you're getting a big fat raise because you made time for these company growth initiatives that were important but not urgent. Instead of just cranking through your to-do list, the things that were, urgent, you actually did things that grew the company. That is what I reward as a business owner. So, another thing I have learned, Robert Kiyosaki said it best. Did he write Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Or did he write, yeah, okay. I think it was in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He said, if you want to be an entrepreneur, how many of you think you might want to be an entrepreneur? How many of you know you have a heart for it? That's an absolute goal to own a business. Good. I started my cleaning business in college. I was 19. I started to tell you the story and I didn't finish. 19 years old, and I started a cleaning business, and I put my little brothers, I have 6 little brothers, and I put some of them in the back of my Honda Accord, and we drove around in more wealthy neighborhoods, and we stuck flyers to all the doors. And I said, I'll clean your house. And then I went out and bid them, and I cleaned houses all summer. And then at the end of that summer, I sold the business for $300. And then I went to BYU, and I didn't work my whole sophomore year. And then the next summer I came back, and I started the same dang business. Same brothers, back of the car, putting the stuff on the doors. But then, at the end of the summer, I figured out I had a real asset. And I sold my business. This was in 1988, so I sold it for $5,200. $5,200. I sold that business that I built in 3.5 months. I sold to some lady who cleaned houses for $5,200. All I gave her was all these 3x5 cards and said, here's my clients, I've told them you're taking over. Here's my 3x5 cards that tells you all their addresses and what special things they want done and what we charge them. I got bit by the bug. And that is when, at the age of 19, I no longer saw my income as being related to me trading my time for somebody else needing services. I no longer felt like money will happen in my life because I go apply for a job. So that kind of went away in my head. So that's when it all sort of started for me. The Kiyosaki says, in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, go work for a business, but instead of sitting in a corner in whatever you're hired in, marketing or accounting, finance, administrative, operations, assistant to an executive, whatever your little corner is, get your finger in every pie you can. Examine that business. Learn how to read a profit and loss statement. Learn how to read a cash flow statement. Okay? You might not be interested in accounting, but learn some accounting. That is how entrepreneurs are made, is that your first jobs out of college, look at the organization as a whole. Think on a high level. Think in the entrepreneurial ways and in the management ways, instead of just being a technician and doing your little job, and you will be preparing yourself in possibly the best way there is to be a future business owner. Okay, some of my other tips. I want to tell you what makes a great employee. When you go in and have a job interview, so my daughter, Libby, was interviewing for a job a week ago, and she called me up and she said, so what as a business owner, what do you want to hear from an applicant? And I said, go in there and tell them how you're going to take a monkey off their back. Okay? The business owner is like, here, I have a bunch of cash here. Will you take this monkey off my back? Okay? I'm so sick of this monkey on my back. I will give you a bunch of cash if you take it on my back. You got to go in there and you got to be like, I will own that monkey and more monkeys. Okay? So I said, go in there if you're interviewing in customer service. Go in there and say, can we talk about how we could maybe make your cost center, your customer support cost center, a profit center? Like, when I get inside, would you be open to me helping you turn that into a profit center where you actually make money on the money you're spending on customer support? I said, somebody said that to me, that would blow my mind. I would be like, here's the job, and let me pay you more dollars than I was planning on. Okay, go in there and talk to them about how you can take the monkey off their back. And I want to leave time for you guys to ask questions. And ask me questions about hiring and what employers you're looking for, or tell me a story about a job you didn't get, or a job you want, when you're thinking about what questions you might have. Women were not just put on this planet, this is a big learning awareness for me, to be wives and mothers. Okay? I loved being a wife for 20 years. Loved many things about it. I love being a mom. I have 4 amazing kids. But someday they're all going to leave. And so, be the best mom you can be by developing yourself. Okay? Your children will respect you for it. They will step into their own power as they see you do the same. And you don't have to have children to be an amazing woman. Okay? We don't all get to choose that. And so just know there's lots of different paths for you. Ladies, I say that because as I was raised in a super conservative environment, I just want you to know you can be anything that you want to be. Let's see what else here. There's a great book called Crucial Conversations, and the people, some of you have read it, some of you are nodding. Great book, right? So Crucial Conversations is about 4 researchers, I think they're all from BYU, 4 PhD researchers went into a whole bunch of companies, and they said, who here is the one everybody goes to when they have a problem to sort out? Doesn't have to be an executive, just who are the problem solvers here? Who are the highly respected people in your work environment? And then they went and they drilled deep with their colleagues and then with these individuals specifically. And guess what they found out about these really amazing people that everybody looked up to? They were, among all of their colleagues, they were the people willing to have the crucial conversations, willing to take a very narrow path in the ways that they communicated, that avoided the 2 pitfalls. And this is important for your personal life, and this is important for your business life. Okay, because there are 2 ways that people communicate. And in my business, you're going to get fired if you default to either one of these, because it doesn't work. We all work from home. There's no drama, there's no politics, there's only teamwork and collaboration and highly communicative, participatory, everybody's moving the ball down the field in my business. So if you default to either one of these things, it's just not going to be a fit. I'll fire you really nicely. You might feel really good on your way out the door. But these are the ways that most people communicate, and they are silence, okay? Where are the people here who are like, I don't fight, I'm low conflict, I avoid conflict, okay? I got 2 people admitting it, there's more of you than that. They don't like to raise their hand either, because they're afraid I'm going to make them stand up. Okay, these are the passive-aggressive folks, okay? The other one is, besides silence, is violence. We know the violence people, right? Is anybody going to admit you're kind of a fighter, you like to argue with people? Okay? You got stuff to say, I don't care what anybody thinks, okay? These are people who default to violence. Guess what? The people who default to silence and sabotage your mom, sabotage your future spouse, undermine them, say yes to their face, but undermine their plans later, or don't do what you say you'll do, or talk about them behind their back. Which one would you prefer? Who would you rather work with? This should be telling to all of you. Okay, you got the person who says exactly what they think, you know what you see is what you get, they might be kind of rude sometimes, or you got the passive-aggressive person. Who would prefer to work with or be with this person? Raise your hand. Look around. This is not me saying that it's okay to be violent with your words. Not what I'm saying. Okay, who would rather be with the passive-aggressive person? Who's smile and nod to your face? Okay, I got one. All right, you people who think that you're communicating better because you refuse to ever have the hard conversation. Was that telling? To learn how people feel about passive-aggressive? Doesn't fly in the workplace. Doesn't work in my business. I don't have time for it. Because it's brain damage, figuring these people out. And why are they saying, sure, whatever, they don't speak up in meetings or whatever, then they just don't do what they're supposed to do? Okay, so I share that with you not to say violence is better than silence. I'm sharing that with you to go, hey, passive-aggressive people, you might be quiet about it, but people hate it. They hate it worse than the person who says rude things to your face. So what they found out in Crucial Conversations that was completely game-changing for me is that the people who are most respected in the company are not the ones who are quiet, silent, tell everybody everything is fine when it isn't. They were the people who had the hard conversations. They would tell you very hard things to your face that you need to hear so that you can improve. But they did it in a way that is respectful, clear, kind, loving, but they say it. And I'm here to tell you that that has been completely game-changing for me as an entrepreneur, as a human being, as a girlfriend, as a mother, in all parts of my life, to learn to have the hard conversation, but have a goal of, at the end of this conversation, could this relationship be stronger? Even though I just said some hard things to them, or they said some hard things to me. Can I also receive feedback with love and with openness? Okay? That is what the brilliant business people do. And it's a good goal. It's not easy. That's why there's so few people who do it. But just ask yourself, do I default to silence or violence, or both? I know people who only live in those two extremes. Anybody know somebody like that? They're either going to freeze you out, give you the silent treatment, or they're going to be mad and say angry words. So, this is one of the most helpful things to me that I wish I had known earlier in my life. I was not, this good communications behavior wasn't necessarily modeled to me early in my life. Okay, be curious, ask lots of questions. Be the person who asks all the questions. Nobody's ever going to say, man, I hate that kid, he asks too many questions. Okay, when someone asks me questions, I feel like they are trying to learn. And so sometimes some of my best employees will say, I'm sorry I asked so many questions. I'm like, are you kidding me? That shows me that you care about your job. All right, probably the last two things I want to say to you is, first of all, be the change you want to see in the world. Who said that? Some version of it. You know who said that?
Gandhi.
It's attributed to Gandhi. I think that's accurate. I can't find that distinctly, but be the change that you want to be in the world. Whatever you're complaining about in the behavior of others, usually we complain, this is me going into therapist mode. Usually when we're complaining about the behavior of others or something they do that bothers us, it's because we do that too. Because it's in us too. Okay, so check yourself. When you find yourself bitching about your roommate or your professor or whatever, ask yourself, what does this have to do with me? How can I grow from this? Boring professors are part of a good college experience. Okay? You are going to have to do boring things and push through and be a finisher. And when I see on your resume that you completed a bachelor's degree, I know that you are head and shoulders above the other millennials. Okay? You hear all the mockery about the millennials out there? You've heard that you guys are the first generation in maybe ever who've never been through war, who've never been through poverty, right? Like your parents probably got divorced, you probably had some hard stuff, some angst, some social stresses, but you guys have never lacked for much. You've heard this criticism, right? That's what my generation criticizes yours for. When I see that you finished a college degree or even better yet, an advanced degree, I know you're a finisher. So that's probably what I want to leave you with, is be a person who does hard things. When you go to apply for a job, be sure to explain and quantify and be specific and give examples of how you are a person who does hard things and finishes. So, questions? I was told you guys ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, I have a question. I'd like to hear more about your perspective shift for your time exchange for making money. So you said you don't necessarily think that now you have to go get a job to make an income, like you have another resource there.
Yeah, I didn't, when I was 19 and I went out and started the cleaning business, I don't think that necessarily was enough preparation to then go build the business that made $5.4 million last year, right? And I think that my experience as an employee after that, because I was an employee, but I always had a business on the side, and I was always entrepreneurial, I still believe that my employee experience has everything to do with being able to grow as a person, to be able to run a business. Because another thing that any entrepreneur will tell you is that you will hit your head on the glass ceiling of your personal development. If your character development, if your personal growth is here, your business cannot grow to here. Okay, and a good business owner, I mean, if you really read about Steve Jobs, lots of stuff is said out there about Steve Jobs, but he, one of the partners at Pixar and Apple and, worked with Steve Jobs for 24 years, tells a story in a book called Creativity, Inc. And he says, a lot of what's been said about Steve Jobs isn't accurate, they didn't watch him grow for 24 years, but so many things I'm talking to you about here, Steve Jobs had to learn. He was that violence guy. He was like in the middle of a meeting, no, you're an idiot. That's a stupid idea. But he wasn't doing that 10 years later, because that will hurt your business. Being a person who defaults to violence and is unkind to others. If somebody gave you the idea that that's how Wall Street works, successful business owners have to develop their ability to be empathetic, to be flexible, to admit that they're wrong. I mean, one thing I'm always doing is, it's not like I'm right or I'm wrong. I always have to say, could I be partly wrong? Could I be a lot wrong? Could I be completely wrong? And every day I try to ask myself that, 6 or 8 or 10 times. And I try to create a climate in my business where my employees can say, I think you're wrong, and here's why. Because I'll tell them, if you just say, I think you're wrong, they'll be like, so? Well, we're still doing it my way. Okay? I'm like, but give me reasons. Give me reasons. I don't know if I'd be divorced if my then husband had learned to say, here's why I think you're wrong, give me 10 reasons. I remember like in our last year of 20 years of marriage, he said, here's why I think you're wrong. I'm going to give you 8 reasons. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just fell in love with you for a minute. Where were the reasons this whole 20 years? Some people, if you're a very emotional person and you communicate with emotion, remember, you're going to deal with people like me who are like, you give me a bunch of facts. You give me 8 reasons, and I'm probably going to be convinced by about 6 or 7. Like, wow, she really thought this out. So I think I went way off of your question. You're probably like, that's a completely unsatisfactory answer. But I really do believe that what you do as an employee is going to stand you in good stead to be a business owner later. I don't think it's necessarily smart to go start a business at 18 and just be an entrepreneur right out of the gate. My employee experience has taught me so much. Watching my bosses, the good things about them, the bad things about them, watching them grow, watching them suffer, watching them fail, helped me a lot. College and grad school helped me a lot. Just squeeze all the marrow out of the bones. There's a lot to learn here, even in the boring parts.
What were some things that you did in the beginning when you had your blogging stuff to like grow and maintain like your following as well as you did stuff when you did start selling things like you already had a lot of people who were interested? Like, what were some things that you did personally to get that following quickly?
Fantastic question. Because one of my employees struck out on his own. He's contracting for us now. He was my full-time filmmaker for like 2.5 years. And he struck out on his own, and he put up a website, and he was like, I'm going to be you. And he started doing videos, like almost every day he'd have a video, and he would stand there and he would talk to the camera and he would lecture people about internal communications. And nobody was watching his videos. I think like his videos were getting like 9 views. And I would try to talk to him and I'd say, hey, so show him. Don't tell him. So the things that I was doing back then is giving. I was just giving. I was teaching. I was, having a sense of humor. I did a video out gardening with Libby. She doesn't probably know that, but there's a picture in one of my books of me teaching her how to plant radishes. I have a video of my youngest son, me showing him a whole grain, and when you take away the bran and the germ, you just have the glue left. You just have the endosperm, and it's a junk food. And I show him white bread and wheat bread. Actually, you were in that video too, weren't you? I showed gardening, I showed composting, I showed shopping at Costco. I went to the health food store and I'm like, here's why I buy this and here's why I don't buy that. So lots of show rather than tell is what's working on the internet. Lots of video, blogging, infographics are working right now. My blog right now looks pretty epic, but literally 5 years ago there were no graphics, there were no photos, the word infographic hadn't been invented yet. So if you're going to have a business on the internet, you have to know that you are in the fastest growing business climate in the history of the world. And I find that like I like breathe shallow when I think about it. It's terrifying to me. I'm like, you know how Madonna supposedly invented herself every 7 years? We have to reinvent ourselves every 2 years at Green Smoothie Girl because everybody wants to be us. Everybody wants to sit at home in their jammies and make millions of dollars. And so there's literally 10,000 times the competition that I had 11 years ago. And it's not that I'm 10,000 times better, it's that I already got that traction 11 years ago. I was in the right place at the right time with the concept green smoothie. But guess what? I didn't invent the green smoothie. A lady named Victoria Botenko did, who is not making millions of dollars. Because she didn't finish. She didn't keep on going out there. I have spoken in 450 cities in the last 10 years. Okay, I just put the time in. Show my face. Teach, show, give some more. Have a sense of humor. Relate. Be relatable. Don't be intimidating. And nobody cares what you have to say if you're intimidating. Act like you're better than everyone. Right? That doesn't fly on the internet either. So, what a great question. Yes.
So I know we're here to talk about entrepreneurship, but I'm also curious about lifestyle as well, since you're so big into this. So Tyler Stillman touched on how you came from like an unhealthy lifestyle to a healthy lifestyle. So I kind of want to hear about your journey, what kind of created this shift in your life and the desire to be better.
Yep. So I weighed 206 pounds, and I had 21 diagnosed diseases, and I was taking 4 prescription drugs, and I couldn't have run a city block. And now I'm a 4-0 tennis player at the age of 51, and I couldn't have done that if I hadn't discovered how to eat whole foods. So eating whole foods and finding ways that I like doing it, that I could get my kids to do it, because, you know, they gave me some resistance. These two are pretty supportive of it now, and they have some really good healthy habits, but my youngest son, oh, dude, he won't eat anything healthy. It's like pulling teeth. So it's not just the shift that I made, but I did it because their oldest son, my oldest son, was dying. He was in and out of hospitals, emergency rooms. He was a failure to thrive baby, fell below the 5th percentile for weight. Emergency rooms in the middle of the night. It took me 5 years to get him here because one of my 21 diagnosed diseases was infertility. He was a 4 times artificial insemination baby. I lost his twin, miscarried his twin. So finally get this baby here, and he is this failure to thrive baby. Couldn't take him out in public. If he got sick, it'd be life-threatening. And when we turned our diet around, we stopped having dairy products full of hormones, antibiotics, steroids, stopped eating the dairy products, stopped eating the refined processed foods. Okay, no more processed meat, no more bacon, bacon and lunch meat and hot dogs, gone. And I started making the green smoothies. My son went on to lead the state of Utah in 4A baseball. He was named most valuable player at the state playoffs, where he hit 2 grand slams and pitched a near shutout against Skyline. And so it made a believer out of me. We changed our diet and our whole lives changed. So I wouldn't have written 15 books and spoken in 450 cities if I couldn't count on good energy. I wouldn't be playing a competitive sport in my 50s if I hadn't changed my diet. So I'm super passionate about what I do. And like I said, in the beginning, if you just look at it, it's like, oh, I'm gonna teach people how to blend vegetables and greens and superfoods and fruits up in a blender. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I was just like, I don't know how to make any money doing that. But you know what? I started listening. That's another thing I started doing, is asking questions and listening and engaging my audience. And they told me what products to develop. They told me what they wanted. And so I went from that first year where I had no products for sale to I created my first recipe book, and it was called Robyn's Family Favorites. Woo! And I sold it for $7.95. And I sold it as a Word file because I didn't know how to make a PDF. And I sold my $7.95 ebook, and I would hand email it to people, and I was making $1,000 a month within a few months. And I was like, whoa. Now we have months where we do $500,000 and $1 million. Long game. Long game. If you had told me 11 years ago that I'd be making $500,000 a month, okay, that's not going in my pocket. That's not going in my pocket. Okay. That's revenues. That's top line, right? Top line, revenues, profit, whole different number. Whole different number. But anyway, so listen, ask questions of your audience. That's what good marketers do. All right?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so we're like,
I was gonna sneak around, but since you're saying